Next up on the list of things needed to do to this Nova is the fact that the car is sitting really low. So I need to take care of that. The springs I have in there now have no chance at holding this big block car up. Now this car has a big block and it has iron heads, all original fenders and things. It doesn't even have all the parts in the front, and it's already sitting down super low. And you might ask, how low? Well, that low. There's the bump stop, and it's resting right up against the subframe. Springs are not able to hold the car up. And so what happens is the subframe is only 2 5/8 inches off the ground. That's going to be a major headache if I try to drive this on the roads. So I need to fix that. So that's the project I have for today. So I got the car up on jack stands and took the tires off, and I put the tires under the subframe in 2 areas so that in the event that the car was to fall, it doesn't fall all the way to the ground and ruin my rotors. And I would have enough space between the subframe and the floor to be able to insert a jack and lift the car up again. When I installed these springs, on the top there's a little hole, and that hole is actually a mark. Now when I looked in the service manual, the top of the spring has to be a certain amount of space away from that hole, and I think it was within a 1/4 inch, has to be. So I didn't have all the sheet metal before when I was putting the springs in, so I was easily able to look down that hole with a light and actually see where the spring was, the spring top. Well, I can't do that anymore because of all the stuff I have. So I'm taking a different approach, and what I'm doing is I'm making a mark on the bump stop, which I know won't move, and I made a mark onto the spring. So what I plan on doing is I plan on transferring that mark over to the new spring in such a way that the top of the spring will be the same general location as this spring, and then make a mark on the new spring. Then when I install the new spring, all I gotta do is just align the marks, and there it is. And then I have my alignment without worrying about looking down that hole, which I really can't do right now because of all the sheet metal. Well, here they are, out of the car. So now we get to show you what I was referring to as far as the why I made this mark. Here's a mark there, and basically this, the edge of this coil is what has to line up within the, I believe, if I remember correctly, within a 1/4 inch to that of that hole, and I had to do that for both of them. So with the new springs, all I got to do is just ensure that the coil is pretty much in the same location, and then make the mark, duplicate this mark onto the other coil in the same location, so that way when I insert it, it'll line up with my tape that I have on the bump stops. And here are my shocks. Brand new shocks that never got used. And these springs, by the way, they're 385-pound springs, and they pretty much don't do anything to hold the car up. So my QA1 setup came in, and upon removing the springs from the box, I was pretty surprised that these springs are a lot shorter than the ones I had in the car. These are 385, these are 550s. And let's see, here's the number, the model number or part number for the QA1 springs. So these springs are gonna, or should be, able to hold the car up. And so it comes with the locking nuts here. It comes with one washer, which is for the seat of the spring, and the washer, it's supposed to make it less of a hassle to actually adjust it. And so you can see this is the way it comes out the box. And it comes with all new hardware, all new bushings, brand new nuts and bolts for the bottom. And here are the shocks. They have 18 adjustable settings, and they're a lot beefier than the stock shocks. You can see everything about it is a lot beefier, and they're pretty much the same length as the stock shocks. Now when you buy this kit, it does not come with the spanner wrenches, so I had to order these separate. And there's two kits. There's one with just a spanner wrench, and then there's a kit where it comes with the Torrington thrust bearings. And what's good about this is, and I felt I needed this, with 550 springs, to try to adjust the ride height, it's probably going to be a little bit of a task with just this in between the spring and the locking or the adjustment nut. So this Torrington bearing is a very, very thin bearing, and it goes in between two of those washers. And when you go to adjust it, this adjustment nut is going to easily rotate because you have bearings in between it. So it was an added expense, but I think a worthwhile expense to make it easier to adjust. So that is one thing that I had to do. Now as far as the transferring of the marks, you can pretty much see the end of the coils. I pretty much made them the same, and then it was a task to get the marks transferred from one to another. But here's the mark, and then here's the mark for the coil, for the new coil, the 550s. So you can see basically where that mark is set at and how much shorter this spring is. So it makes it really, really easy. It's going to be really easy to install these in the car, because I don't have to worry about compressing springs like with these, or even these, which are the stock height springs. These are 1 inch lower regular springs, and of course these are the coilovers. But you can see I progressively went down in spring height, and I think by far this is going to be the easiest to install. This was easier to install than these, obviously, because it was shorter, but these are going to be even easier because I don't need to worry about compressing the spring. So I'm going to get ready to install this. I'm pretty excited to see how high or how low I can get the car and how easy it is to adjust. So I'm going to get to that right now. Okay, so my coilover setup has been installed. It was pretty easy to install it. But there it is. And there's the adjusting knob. It's on towards the outside, and it's all ready to roll. And we'll look at the other side. Here's the other side. I can now remove this tape, which was my mark for the alignment of the spring. There. So there's the coilover on that side. And currently I have it adjusted all the way to the bottom on both sides. Well, here it is. The Nova is now on the ground. And let's show you what the bump stops distance is. The springs definitely are doing their job. There it is. I got a good 3/4 of an inch, and if that bump stop compresses at all, I'll have at least close to an inch of travel for the suspension. There's the coilover setup. The spacing between the subframe and the floor is now 3.5 inches, and the setting that I went with is about 2 to 3 threads away from all the way in the bottom. And that's, you got to bear in mind that you have 2 lock nuts on there, and so even though it's the bottom lock nut is 2 to 3 threads away, the top one is much higher. So, but pretty much it's at the bottom. So that's the setup right there. And now the tires, the wheels are not the ones that are going to be on the car. So I can't dial it in exactly how I would like it, only because of the fact that, you know, those are not going to be the wheels. But for now, with the results that I got with these wheels, I'm pretty happy with. The spacing that the fender is off of the ground is roughly 23 to 16 to 23 and 1/8 inch off the ground. And I'm very happy with that, because when I put the new tire and wheel combo, it's going to be slightly higher. And you can see the fender is right above the edge of the tire. So with the bigger tire setup, I'm hoping to tuck it in just a little bit. So I did some bounce tests on the car. I was jumping up and down on the fender, on the front bumper. Not the fender, the front bumper. I was jumping up and down, and just to see the stiffness of the car, and it's definitely a firm bounce. And then I went with you know, adjusting the shock, and I went with, you see there, 2 to 8 clicks for nice riding handling. I went with 6 clicks. Now I won't be able to tell how the car definitely feels, so I will have to wait till I actually start driving, and I may be thinking of going between the 8 and the 12, because I like a firm ride. So we'll have to wait to see how the car rides before I can step up to those higher clicks. But for now, jumping on that bumper, and when the bounce comes back up, it stops. It doesn't bounce. You just push down, let go, it goes up and stops immediately. So it's a good feel. So that's it. The car is now fixed of its problem with the suspension. I'm very, very happy with the results. And stay tuned for the next video, because yup, next video I show you the wheels. As always, thank you very much for watching.